So as people are still streaming in, I know we're joined across the globe internationally by a lot of people. I'm happy to see men and women. That's great. Today, as you know, March 8th is International Women's Day. We are celebrating not just the rights, but women, I would say, in general. We're really acknowledging those who have come before as women and have been trailblazers. And today we're celebrating ourselves, fostering what it is to be a woman, taking a stake, a hold in the world. So happy International Women's Day to everybody, to men and women both. And I suppose the format of what we would like to do today, let me just go through. I can share a few words. There's a lot that's been said and a lot that could be said. But a few words, I was thinking about what is it that I could share with you to inspire you and to move us as human beings, as women, to the next step on what is required. And before I do that, I just really, again, I want to welcome you, congratulate you, and wish everybody a happy International Women's Day, honoring women, femininity, not just women. If we look, the making of life, nature, it consists of both masculine and feminine. I'm not talking male, female, but qualities, ideas, emotions, poetry between male and female. If we think masculine, we think from the perspective of left brain. And when we think of femininity, we think of love, care, connection, value, concern, poetry, art. So we're talking and recognizing that making life requires both. We are made up of both. And if we examine, let me start with a statement that talks about the current world. If we examine the world, the current system clearly is not working. It's designed by men with masculine standards for success. It's not working. So I think that as women, we have a great responsibility to redefine success. Currently, we measure success with money, bottom line. We don't value a person because they have a great brain and intelligence. We don't necessarily value a person because they have a great big heart. We measure a person based on what they have earned, money. And so the time, I think, now, this revolution for women, for human beings, for men, is about redefining success. The first revolution for women was about vote, the right to have a voice in how our world functions, what we're doing in the world. The second revolution was about access to opportunity, the top jobs, equal pay, and so on. But it's time for another ideological change towards what it means to have more rights for women, what it means to have more rights for minorities, for race, for religion, for gender. We are now talking about human values over rights for any separate individual. That doesn't ignore the fact that in the world, as I said, because it's masculine, it's designed by men, there are disparities. But just asking for ourselves, for women alone, that time has passed. We are at a place where we're now discussing greater values, redefining success based on the feminine force. Because if we get rid of femininity, and that's actually what's happening, unfortunately, we as women have also bought into the system of the masculine. Look at our education system. Look at our political system. Look at our religious systems. Look at our healthcare system. It's all defined by success that are standards of masculinity. We stuff information in kids. if they can regurgitate it out, get an A, compete, do better than the guy next to him, the student next to him or her, then we say you've been successful in education. Well, politics we don't need to get into, but nobody's really thinking about leading the citizen and what's good for the citizen. Most of them are also sitting around thinking about how to fill their pockets, the lobbying power that you see in politics. Businesses are run by bottom line. Of course, people talk about transformation and they talk about social values and contributing to the world, but really, the economic institution is also run through masculine standards of bottom line success. And we as women, what have we done for the first and the second revolution? Bought into the system. We are asking to drink the same Kool-Aid that they have prepared, and that system is not working. This third revolution isn't about just competing with the standards, the values that exist in the world today. It's about redefining it. We have great responsibility as women. Actually, we come into the world as women with a feminine force that requires greater care, concern in child rearing. The truth of the matter is, as we raise children, not just give birth to them, but as we raise children, we are asked to cultivate the next generation. We are actually at a pivotal center point of societal change as mothers and as women. And so that means we have to redefine what we consider success and not just buy into the system. This is the first thing we need to realize. It's not about women becoming men or more like men in order to compete. It's not defining success as the way men have or the masculine force has defined it. But it's time to bring in the feminine quality. And the truth is, if we push aside or move the feminine force in the background, which is what actually has happened, then we actually enslave a woman. Because without the feminine force in life, we cripple humanity. We cripple society. And that's something that no education system, no political system, no business structure is talking about. Here and there, yes, the changes are happening and women and men are standing up for human values over just human rights. And if we really want human rights, we have to start and transform what we value, what our standards are, what is at the front line of how we define success, how we define our identity. Look at the facts. If we define our identity, our self-worth, who we are based on how much money we have, the size of our pockets, or what's between our legs in our pants and in our skirt, those are masculine qualities. We get nowhere. That is where the ills of society, like loneliness, like isolation, like depression, come into fruition. Conflict in the world comes in because we are standing up for limited beliefs, limited identity, limited thought about who we really are. Given what's happening with technology today, the globe has become a small place. It's become a little home. And technology is advancing and creating a greater and greater sense of cohesion. It's very difficult to be living in America and not be impacting India, or India versus Germany or whatever. The whole globe has united through technology. So we have to unite through our value system. Where we place our identity, where we place our self-worth, determines what we choose. The actions we take, how we treat people, how we treat ourselves, how we treat nature. And so what I'm suggesting is it's time to define who we are by both the masculine force and the feminine force. Men can be feminine when required, depending on the circumstances, just as well as women can be masculine when required for circumstances. But we cannot lose the poetry, we cannot lose the care, we cannot lose the art, we cannot lose the belongingness, we cannot make the feminine a backdrop to life and to the world. It actually needs to be at the forefront. The qualities of femininity need to be at the forefront. That means shifting our identity to first recognizing that we're part of a force, a life force. We're part of one life, not so separate. And then recognizing we're human beings first, one species. It's not men species and women species. That we're one species first. And from there, we can go on to the identity of race, religion, nationality, and of course, gender. And I bet if we educated our kids at a very young age to recognize that they're not just boy, girl, dark, light, black, white, Chinese, Indian, but if we educated from the very beginning, just like we educate all the separateness of life, we educated them on the unity, the oneness of life, we would transform, we would naturally have human rights, because values, human values, generate how we interact with people. We will not act to hurt, to injure others if we can see that there is life in them that throbs the same way that it throbs in us. Now this might sound a little woo-woo, but really think practically. The truth is, we're educated with Newtonian thinking where we divide and dissect. Our intellect has been filled with information of compartmentalizing people, situations, objects, life, race, religion, gender. In the same way, we could educate ourselves to look a little bit underneath what is on the surface and realize that, hey, I'm not just this body, I'm not just this skin color, I'm not just whether I'm young or old, I am part of this whole, this race, this configuration of life that is just that, life. There's no my life, there's no your life, there's no male life, there's no female life, just life. So on this day of International Women, celebrating women, I think it's time for a third revolution. Which revolution? Redefining success based on feminine values, not masculine values. Success that includes, yes, bottom line, comfort, but includes care, connection, concern, looks to the world as a whole. We have no choice. As technology advances, we will find that we get smaller and smaller, requiring us to interrelate, engage as one whole. The resources of this planet cannot be sustained through conflict and division. No matter what happens, you cannot earn, you cannot live, you cannot survive if all we're doing is defining success through survival mode of producing. We need to think bigger, we need to think wider. So the third revolution for us as women, as human beings, the men who are on this, the men who are out there leading, need to get spiritualized. We need to define who we are, not by our titles, not by the size of our pockets and bank accounts, not through simply division and separation, but through feminine values, what we could call human values of love and care and compassion. So with that, I'd like to invite questions from you or comments from you so that, we can expand on this topic together. Thank you, Holland, for the love. If you have questions, comments, it would be wonderful so we can talk a little bit further on women's rights. And again, I say to you, women's rights means we're narrowing humanity, because from women's rights, the moment we are given, and you know, the thing is, what we do when we fight for human rights is we react to reverse the wrong. And that's a challenge. Because in reacting to reverse the norm, what is existing, it's required, I suppose, at some level, but if that's all that we do you know what's happening? We do injustice to someone else. I'll give you an example. When my brother was in medical school, or applying to medical school in India, they had started what we call affirmative action, meaning those who had been denied access to medical education were given more seats in medical schools than those group of people who had previously been given a lot of access. Sort of like we hire more women because women are not enough as a representative in a workforce. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what happens is those who have merit, those who deserve to be in medical school, those who are required and could be in that job are denied. There's injustice that happens to one group when we try to rectify the injustice for another group simply by reacting. So what we need to do is go out of the conversation of just rights at this point in our life, in the world, and start to inculcate, cultivate, educate on human values. Let's see, there's a question by Sylvia. What are the top feminine and masculine force attributes? I would like to believe every human has more or less both. I'd like to learn from you and how to balance both. Sylvia, absolutely right. It's my first sentence. Making of life comes with masculine and feminine force. You know something? In yoga, what people repeat repeatedly again and again, Hatha Yoga. Understand what it means. Ha means the sun. Ta means the moon. Balancing of the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine, is referred to as the practice of yoga. When we balance both, we thrive. We have the ability to have masculine qualities, measure, survive, succeed, be strong, firm, clear, pick up a bow and arrow when required, and at the same time have love, care, concern, connection in our action. When we disengage the two, when the choices we make, when we take action, is simply left brain, logic and reason and rationale, without the heart, without the poetry, without the tenderness, without the gentleness, then the ills of society increase. Loneliness, isolation, depression, suicide, you name it, it increases. We have, by masculine standards in our world, achieved an enormous amount. Just look at the world. The level of comfort, technology. You know, once we used to walk, we got a bicycle. From bicycle, we got cars. From cars, we got airplanes. We're evolving. Look at technology. But if you look, because the feminine is being pushed away, and we have all, men and women, bought into the current definition of success, what do we see? Society is getting crippled. So we have absolutely both. We're just pushing one away and praising the other. What can we do as women to deconstruct toxic masculinity in our society? Number one, you have to not buy into it. You have to own your power of femininity. You have to know, as trite as it sounds, love is the greatest power. When one is inspired, connected through love, care, and concern, human beings are ready to walk through walls for anybody. But money and motivation, which are masculine qualities at a certain level, only go so far. So it's not that all masculinity is bad. It's, as you say, the toxicity of it. When we define it by the most superficial standards, that's when we all lose. As men, as women, as human beings, as citizens of this globe. Yes? Let's see, what other questions? Sorry, I'm missing them. Hold on. Thank you for sharing. I love the power behind your words. Women who are career-oriented and who don't get support from family and husband end up ignoring their kids. So both husband and wife are busy in their careers. How do we create a balance so we don't? You know why that happens? Dipti, it's a great question. Why it happens? Why doesn't a husband or somebody in the family support one over the other? It's because we have created a value around earning money versus being at home. You know, my grandmother, she didn't earn $1, but she took care of everything else that was required in our household. She didn't earn a rupee. Her sense of self wasn't defined by whether I earned money or not, and neither did the people around her, the society that she lived in, define success, her value of life, her contribution to life based on did she earn money or not. There were roles that were played. And I can recall if my grandfather wasn't around, it was okay. Somehow that was okay. But if the mother factor, the grandmother wasn't around, as children, it was even more difficult. So again, what I'm saying is the reason why we get support and no support is because we have defined one thing as lesser. Whether that's being a woman or the work we do as women or the work that men do. Even within that, we have standards of what we consider better or worse. And so we have to redefine, again, what I'm saying is success. Rajshree says something. Rajshree Ravi Shankar, for those of you who don't know, he's a spiritual master from India, my master and guru. He says something that is brilliant, which is life, if it has 100% success, you failed 50%. 200% success makes for success. The masculine success, meaning the comfort of the world, material success, a home, a car, all those things. But if that's all you have, but you don't have the second, happiness, internal success, joy, connection, belonging, care, the ability to sleep at night, happiness and well-being is what we're talking about, broadly speaking, as a feminine quality, and the external as the masculine quality. When you don't have both, we have failed in life. And it's been proven 1,000 times. Happiness, love, care, connection drives material success. It is not true the other way around. Just because you have money, it does not guarantee that you're happy, or that you will sleep at night, or that you will have bonds that are rich with your own children or siblings. That only happens when we redefine socially, globally, not just one person, not just one group of people, but all of us as human beings, when we redefine life, who we are, and our identity. Yes? Let me see. What are the top feminine, masculine qualities? How can we invoke the masculine or feminine force within us? Number one, drop the judgment. Look at what we do. We're hardwired, and we have defined what is right and what is wrong, what is okay and what is not okay. If you can just be you, the best mantra in the world today is ease. If you can just accept you and hell, go for what you want, not at the cost of someone else, but because you want it. Define your idea of who you are and success, not based on what someone else has, but what you have. Then you will see the right quality at the right moment and right circumstance reveals itself. But when we go into the world, when we take action, when we choose based on standards that we have adapted without being conscious, that we were conditioned into. So a wake-up call, being conscious, is the way that we can balance and choose how we express, how we live, how we love, and what we act upon, with what force, the masculine force or the feminine force. And at some point, you know what we really discover? It's one force. There really isn't this separation. The yin and the yang are not two. They are one. If you see the drawing, it's a circle. On one level, there are two, and on another level, there are one. And the more aware, more sensitive, more conscious we are, we operate from that force of oneness, and we don't need to figure out what is more masculine and what is more feminine. Yeah. What else? So much love from you in Holland. Thank you. Any other questions? Please forward them. Men and women who are both career-oriented end up ignoring kids. Can I tell you something? I know I read that question, but that's our future. You know, need to have an honest talk about where you really are, what really is important, what is at the forefront of your life. So what if you have 2 houses or 10 houses? You have accumulated enough wealth for 2 generations. Let's assume that. At the time of your death, you will not look back and say, I'm so thrilled I got 4 homes or 10 homes and I have a huge bank account. Oh, and I left it all for my kids. Because more than likely, those kids will fight after you go. You have to have an honest call or talk with yourself now, not at your deathbed, about what is your priority. What is the education we need to give our kids? You probably already have enough to support your kids, and your kids could earn a little more to live the rest of your life. Draw a line. Prioritize. Decide what is at the front line for you and your kids. I had heard someone share an idea recently. If you've already generated enough for your children, what if you educated them and supported them to live a life that's just full of happiness by contributing to the world? What would that education look like? What would that child rearing look like? Look and see, we give our kids the same old thing. Conditioned stuff and standards that we must live by, and no one's able to. We don't have to worry about enemies. Our greatest enemy is our inability to handle our own emotions, our own thoughts, our little brain. It's working against us. We are working against ourselves because all we're doing in education is giving people the direction of competing and comparing to feel good by looking at the person next to us. You know, if you ask a 4-year-old today, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a doctor. And if the neighbor hears, they go home and they ask their kid, what do you want to be? And the kid just goes, oh, no, I don't know. That freaks us out. No, I have to prepare my child to compete with my neighbor. We take exams in school to make sure we get 2 points higher than the kid next to us because that makes us feel good about ourselves. Is this life? Where has this gotten us? That system has been proven not to be working. Just look at Ukraine. Just look at the conflicts in the world. It has arrived to this place by those standards. Are we going to stand up for something different? That's the question. No? And let's see, I just see all kinds of hello. I'm glad to be a woman. Without women, the world is not complete. We are important for the world. 50% of life is masculine and 50% of life is feminine. It isn't even about glad to be a woman. Because in you as a woman, there's also the masculine. Again and again, what I'm really saying is, yes, acknowledge gender. It's valuable. Stand up for gender. It's necessary, just like for anything else, whether it's race or religion, whatever it might be. But start to shift the consciousness to wholeness. Honor and respect wholeness over division, separateness. That's what we're really discussing. And I think it's time for that now, the right to vote and right to access an opportunity, higher pay, equal pay, right to the high top-notch positions, the right for women to do what they would want to do, even if it was mostly men-oriented, or for men to do what women might want to do, like maybe they want to stay home and take care of kids. Feminine and masculine is in both, and we need to be able to choose which way we go, and currently, masculine approach hasn't worked. I think there's a huge shift in feminine, loving Shakti power. Yes, I do believe that that's growing. I think there are a lot of men and women standing up, as we're saying, for human values, principles, transforming businesses, education systems, but it's just the tip of the iceberg, and we need to do more. And today's conversation is to remind ourselves for that. I run a business single-handedly. I've hurt some people with my words and getting the flack for it. Well, do you notice that in the world, we value being tough and firm, and I tend to do this also, where we sometimes mistake being direct versus speaking the truth that is sweet more valuable. Oh no, I don't put up with bullshit, I'm just straight. Yes, but that's a certain sign of not being at ease again. And so words come out of our mouth. Maybe they're to serve, maybe they're there for selfish purposes, doesn't matter. But words come out that take on a force without care or concern about the other. And so what we're really saying is, it's easy enough to own the feminine power, to go back to those people and to say, I was unaware, unconscious, and stressed. And I may have said things that are not appropriate or that might have hurt you. See the humanity in me and please let it go. Let's move on with a new, clean slate. It's easy to do. But if you're defined as I'm the boss, I lead my business, how can I do that? It's a very masculine quality. Clearly, it doesn't work. So I suggest to you, be kind, be loving, go back and talk to them. How do I handle this? Again, I just said, my husband is ready to leave me because of my in-laws. How to deal with this? I feel abandoned and unloved. You came into the world alone, without the husband. And you probably didn't meet him until you were at least, or didn't marry him till at least around 20s, 25 or so. Between then and now, evaluate. Who are you? What do you need? And what actually is abandoned? You have abandoned yourself, your sense of self. Don't get me wrong, I really understand the whole situation of a marriage and a divorce and how difficult that can be, because what we're doing is letting go of expectations and ideas that we had for the future. We don't actually grieve or feel abandoned for what we had while we were married. We go through the loss and the grief of the ideas that we projected into the future, what we thought we would have, how I might be when I'm 70, 90, 80, where I will live, what I will do, all the travels I might do, so on and so forth. But we come into this world alone, and we spend our life, unfortunately, in this body, experiencing whatever joy, pain, sorrow, alone, think about what I'm saying, that the experience within our system is alone. And we have to get comfortable in that aloneness, and 99.9% of us are not. We go from one relationship to a next, one distraction to a next, one thing to another, one achievement to another. We never give the gap of experiencing oneself, the alone self, not lonely, the alone self. And so perhaps now it's time for you to do that. Because you can't bring him back unless he chooses to. You have to let that go. How do we overcome insecure emotions, especially with respect to a partner? Look, insecure emotions means insecurity about yourself. That's what you're talking about. You have to start to see who you are, what you can do, what you have accomplished. Underneath that, you have to take action to do what is required in order to know who you are. What we do is we think, we plan, we organize, we strategize, and we never really do the right thing. I was recently having a conversation with a friend, and I was saying to him that the problem in life, how we disempower, feel more insecure, is when we choose to ignore what we know is the right thing to do. We do that. We ignore what we know for one reason. We don't want the responsibility. We don't want the consequences of the result of our choice. So we pretend, we feign, we pretext, we pretend to be confused. You know, we don't choose. Are you hearing me? We don't choose because we don't want the responsibility. And so when you know what the right thing is, do the right thing. And don't rely on your partner to define who you are, how strong you are, and what you're capable of. As a woman, I feel constant pressure to worry about my body and physical aspects. How can I later myself from such thoughts? Because you're stuck on your body and your gender as your sense of self and worth. Look how we do this, you know, men over women. And then within women, it's not all women, it's youthful women versus older women. And it's not just any women. We probably have ideas of black women versus white women, or white women are better versus black women. Look at your identity. Are you just your body? It changes. You were 7 pounds and perhaps you're now 117 pounds. Something in you hasn't changed. The you that is watching this body change is who you are. You need to shift. If you define yourself by your body, you will never find security. Because unfortunately, the rules of nature are body decays. Your boobs will be down to the floor sooner or later. Your skin will not go up to the sky, but will go towards your knees. You will age. And if you look at the media, if you look at society, they value the 18-year-old, not the 80-year-old. But there's a great deal to be valued in the 80-year-old, the wisdom, the care, the life experience. And there's great to be valued in the 18-year-old, the vitality, the youthfulness, the spontaneity, the freedom. If the 18-year-old has it. But if they're stuck in what the media shows, they compare with another 18-year-old or a 12-year-old, and they never meet up. Redefine your sense of self. How do I handle criticism from people I have hurt with my words? Well, the same way that you are expecting them to handle the words that you have given them. Let it go. You'd want them to let it go, so you should let it go. I was born a man and others a woman. At times it seems impossible to honor my manhood, especially as I think about this third revolution. Is it wise to honor my manhood in these exciting times? I was born a man At times it seems impossible to honor my manhood. You know what? What do you mean by manhood? I'm talking about masculinity and femininity. Masculinity is strength, confidence, clarity. Does that mean women don't have strength, confidence, clarity? No. They express their strength, confidence, clarity with more tenderness, maybe with more love or care or concern. Poetry is a better way to say it. The ideas are different. And you must not honor just one side of you. Bring both together. When required, that. As far as I can see, there's two places where you need to think about gender, if that's what we're talking about, male or female. Basically in the bedroom, one place. And maybe the second place where male and female really come into the picture is what you put down on your birth certificate, perhaps. But other than that, why do we have to walk around with an identity, I'm manhood, masculine or not, or feminine or not, or too girly or not? If being a feminist or a girl is defined by what I wear and how I look and what lipstick I have on, that's body consciousness. That's not even being conscious of maleness or femaleness. It's not impossible to honor your manhood. You're judging it. You have standards and demands on how you think you should be. Ease. Honestly, on this International Women's Day, let me repeat myself. The current mantra for all of us is ease. Because when we enter a state of ease, whatever comes at us, we gain two things, clarity and intuition. When we have pressure, anxiety, demand, self-judgment, we can't think clear and nothing intuitive comes through. And that intuition, that instinct is a feminine force, which is very, very powerful, in which case you'd call it a masculine force also. It's just two sides of the same coin. Yes? Why is there a constant comparison by parents between two siblings? Unfortunately, they were educated to compare. I just told you. You'll go to kindergarten or nursery school, you come home, you share with your parents what you did, and your mother goes to pick you up and she sees that the kid next to you is talking, and they start comparing because their standard of success is to do one better than the next. Get this, as human beings, we are hardwired, conditioned to compete and compare by doing one better at any cost with whoever we're working with, including with siblings. You notice that siblings, it's not just parents comparing, kids grow up and then they compare with each other. Siblings compare with other siblings. I know plenty of people, I'm sure you do also, where siblings don't really interact, where there's competition between mother, daughter, father, son also compete. It's absurd. It's not that rare, unfortunately. And that's why we're saying rewire values more than substance that we can touch, see, and feel. Hello. I'm seeing lots of hellos and greetings. And any other questions? Sometimes in this world, in leadership role, women ignore their femininity. How to balance that? That's what we're talking about. The third revolution is not to join the existing masculine system and compete in it. No. It's to redefine it. We have to restructure education, politics, religion, business. We need to bring in more value, compassion, care, concern, sense of one global family, not me, myself, and I. I'm not saying ignore that. That's part of life also. But it's just one part of life. We, us, together is another part of life. Both need to be there at once. How to face rejection from a guy I love. Suddenly, without saying anything, he has blocked me. You block him also, out of your head. Such a big thing, relationships. The reason it becomes such a big thing is because we're looking to be saved by one person. And unfortunately, there's no way out. The only way out is in. You have to save yourself. You have to be comfort, love, care, concern about you. I don't mean in a selfish way. It's about self-acceptance. Who you are, how you are. I mean, look at this big world. Just think about it. We are not even a speck on this planet. Billions have come and gone, and billions more will come and go. Think of just the Milky Way. In the Milky Way, what is the Earth? If it exploded today, nobody would notice. And on the Earth, you are where you are. Okay, here we are. On the Earth, there is California. What is California on the Earth? One piece. And then I'm in Los Angeles. What is Los Angeles? Nothing. And in Los Angeles, with the millions of people, what is Rajshree Patel? Even less. Insignificant. If you get that, you live life boldly, fully, vibrantly, Gotta be the changes we would like to see in the world. Yes, absolutely. If you want more love, more care, more concern in life, you live that way. You operate that way. It's funny. We measure our value, our sense of self, success, based on what we can see, touch, and feel. Size of our bank account, size of our house, the symbol on our car. Is it a Tesla or a Honda or whatever, a Ferrari? What we wear. Am I holding a Gucci bag or a Kmart bag? That's how we measure. But what we really want and value is what is not tangible, not measurable, not provable. You can't prove how much I care for you. You could ask me 1,000 times and I cannot prove it to you. What matters most is the intangible, the elusive, the immeasurable. But all our drive and focus is on only what we can measure, see, touch, and feel. And based on that, we define our sense of confidence and power. I mean empower, not just power over, but empower. And vitality and courage and risk and strength and so on. So I'll end here. On this day, International Women's Day, honor both the masculine and the feminine. Redefine what is at the front end of success for you in your life. Don't, as a woman, just buy into, drink the same Kool-Aid that society has been serving us, because it's not working. The measurements of success today are very masculinely defined. Don't rest your accolades on your race or your gender or your religion, conceptualized, divided aspect of life, but really look to life with one great wide lens, whole. I wish you the best. I wish I could just say, wake up, get up, and act. Forget the noise in your head. Forget the definitions of the world. Just go for it. And I wish that could be enough to get you to say, I'm done with the BS. I'm done with what I've taken on in myself. I'm done with all the conditioning. I will have an honest talk with myself and say, what really matters to me? And am I really leaning into the love, the peace, the care that I want? Or am I leaning into approval from other people because I have the right bag and the right clothes and the right shaped body and the right age and the right thing between my legs? Time to move from there. That's our revolution on this day for women and for men, for all of humanity. So, thank you for joining. And I know that I've been gone for a long time. So this year I'll have to make up for last year also. I'll be here with, just live Q&A, topics like what it means to change our world and our life, talking really about wider lens, the power of what it is to be human. So let's connect again. You can stay in touch, of course, on social media. Engage. I will start to respond again more. So if you have questions, comments, just share and forward this message to people. Yes? Simple message. Human values more than rights. That's where we have to head now as a global citizen. Yes. God bless you. Bye. Speak again.